I'm going to tell you something that might shock you. In all my years of public service, I met dozens of powerful people who had everything: the position, the influence, the wealth, the title, and absolutely nothing at all. They traded their integrity piece by piece, thinking they were climbing higher when really they were hollowing themselves out from the inside. And here's what haunts me: many of them didn't even realize they'd made the trade. It happened so gradually, one compromise at a time, that they woke up one day in the corner office and didn't recognize themselves in the mirror. Today, I want to show you the choice nobody talks about, the one that determines whether you'll build a life of genuine power or just an expensive prison. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Another speech about doing the right thing, another person telling you to be good and wait your turn while everyone else gets ahead by cutting corners. But that's not what this is. I'm not here to give you a sermon. I'm here to tell you the truth about how power actually works, based on what I've seen from the inside, from the rooms where real decisions get made, from the moments when everything is on the line. By the end of our conversation today, you'll understand the most important truth I learned in my years of service: that integrity isn't the obstacle to power, it's the only path to power that doesn't destroy you in the process. You're going to leave here with a completely different understanding of what real strength looks like, and I'm going to show you exactly how to build it, step by step, decision by decision, because I know what you're dealing with. You're exhausted from watching people who cheat the system get ahead while you play by the rules. You're starting to wonder if you're naive for believing integrity matters in a world that rewards shortcuts. You've been told to just wait your turn, but you're watching people cut in line by compromising everything. You feel pressure to make small compromises now, just to get established and deal with integrity later. And you're terrified that staying true to yourself means you'll never achieve your dreams. I felt all of that, every single bit of it. And I've sat in rooms where billion-dollar decisions were made. I've faced down the most powerful people in the world. I've seen both paths, the one where people grab power at any cost and the one where they build it on something solid. I'm not speaking from theory. I'm speaking from the front lines of leadership, from the moments where these choices got real, and from watching what happens to people 10, 20, 30 years after they make their choice. Right now, you might feel like you're choosing between success with compromise or failure with integrity. But that's the false choice they want you to believe. The real choice is between temporary success that eventually collapses or sustainable power built on a foundation that can't be shaken. One path leads to anxiety, insecurity, and constant fear of exposure. The other leads to confidence, peace, and the kind of influence that actually changes things. Let me tell you what integrity is not. It's not being perfect. It's not never making mistakes. It's not refusing to make hard choices or difficult compromises. Real integrity means knowing where your line is, and I'm going to help you find yours. It means understanding that you can negotiate on tactics while staying firm on principles. The powerful people who maintain their integrity aren't the ones who never bend, they're the ones who know exactly what they'll never break. I'm not going to give you platitudes about how good always wins and bad always loses. That's not reality. I'm going to show you the real mechanics of how integrity creates power, not through karma or cosmic justice, but through practical psychology, social dynamics, and the actual way trust and influence work in the real world. Ask not for easy answers, but for true ones. I know you're scared. I know it feels like everyone else is playing by different rules and you're handicapping yourself. I felt that way too. But I also know something else. You're here because something in you refuses to accept that trading your soul is the only way forward. That voice inside you that says there has to be another way, that's not naivety, that's wisdom. And today, we're going to give that wisdom the practical strategy it deserves. Let me take you back to some moments that taught me these lessons the hard way. Not because I was noble, but because I had to learn what happens when integrity and ambition collide. I was young in the Senate, ambitious, hungry to make a difference, And there was this vote coming up on legislation that I believed deep in my bones was fundamentally wrong. It wasn't obviously evil. That's not how these things work. It was one of those bills that looked reasonable on the surface but would hurt people who didn't have a voice in that room. The kind of thing you could vote for and justify 100 different ways. The pressure came from everywhere. Party leadership pulled me aside. Not threatening, you understand. Friendly, paternal even. They explained how the game works. This is how you become influential, they said. You support the leadership now. And when you have power, then you can vote your conscience. First, get power. Then use it. And I'll be honest with you, it made sense. I could see the logic. I'd be more effective in the long run if I had a seat at the table. What good is purity if you're powerless? That's what they said, and I almost believed it. Then a senior senator, a man I'd admired, pulled me into a quiet corner. He'd been there for 20 years. He had all the committee seats, all the influence, and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "John, I voted my conscience once I had power, but by the time I had power, I didn't have a conscience anymore. I'd trained it out of myself one vote at a time. That moment changed everything for me. I voted against that legislation. I lost the committee seat I'd been promised. Some people stopped returning my calls. I went home that night wondering if I'd just destroyed my career before it even started. 3 years later, that senior senator who'd given me advice, he left office in scandal. The compromises had caught up with him. And me, the reputation I'd built for being someone who actually stood for something started opening doors I didn't even know existed. People who were looking for someone they could trust in a sea of deal makers started seeking me out. Not because I was perfect, but because they knew where I stood. But that was just the beginning. The real test came when the stakes got much higher. You probably know the story of PT 109. What you might not know is the part they don't tell in the history books. When that Japanese destroyer hit us in the dark, everything happened so fast. The boat was cut in half. Fire on the water. Men screaming. And in that chaos, I had to make a decision. There was a crewman, badly injured, couldn't swim. Every instinct I had said, save yourself. The current was strong. The fire was spreading. The rational choice, the survival choice, was to swim for shore and hope he'd make it somehow. Nobody would have blamed me. It was war. Things happen in war. But here's what I realized in that moment. This wasn't about heroism. This was about who I'd have to become if I left him. I could survive by abandoning him, but could I survive becoming the person who abandoned him? Could I lead anyone ever again, knowing what I knew about myself? Could I look at my reflection knowing that when it mattered most, I'd chosen comfort over character? So I went back. We towed him for hours through that water, and I'm not telling you this to paint myself as a hero. I'm telling you because of what happened next. That crew, those men who saw what happened that night, they became the most loyal team I ever led. When I ran for Congress, they were there. When I ran for Senate, they organized their communities. When I ran for president, they built the foundation of my campaign. Not because I'd saved one man's life, but because they knew, without question, what kind of person I was when everything was on the line. That decision in the water created a ripple effect I couldn't have predicted. It was the trust it built, the credibility it established, the foundation it laid for everything that came after. Now, those were the obvious tests. But here's what nobody tells you. The most dangerous threats to your integrity don't come as big moral dilemmas. They come as small, harmless seeming compromises that everyone makes. Let me tell you about the small betrayals that almost destroyed me from the inside. Early in my career, I was in a meeting where someone asked about my war record, and I embellished just a little, made it sound a bit more heroic than it was. Everyone does it, right? It's just part of selling yourself. I told myself it was harmless. It was just marketing. Another time, a junior staffer made a brilliant insight that helped me win a debate. When people congratulated me afterward, I didn't correct them. I let them think it was my idea. It seemed like such a small thing. What difference did it make? I was the one who had to deliver it anyway. Then there was the time I made a mistake that cost us an important opportunity, and when my supervisor asked what happened, I carefully worded my explanation so that it sounded like someone else's error. I didn't lie exactly. I just arranged the facts in a way that protected me. These tiny compromises, these small betrayals of the truth, they didn't feel like much at the time, but they started to add up. They created this weight I carried around that I didn't even notice at first. Like gaining weight so gradually you don't see it until you look at an old photo. And here's what scared me most. I was getting good at it. The rationalizations came easier. The embellishments felt more natural. I was training myself day by day to be someone who was comfortable with small deceptions. And if I could rationalize small deceptions, what would stop me from rationalizing bigger ones when the stakes got higher? It was my brother who called me out. We were alone, late at night, and he just asked me, "Do you even hear yourself anymore? Do you notice how many of your stories aren't quite true?" And I got defensive. I got angry because he was right, and I knew it. That night, I sat down and made a list of every small compromise I'd made, every embellishment, every borrowed credit, every shifted blame, and I went back and cleaned it up. I called people. I admitted things. I made myself vulnerable by being honest about my dishonesty. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But you know what? The weight lifted. That constant low-level anxiety I'd been carrying around, wondering who knew what, wondering when I'd be exposed, wondering if I could keep track of all my half-truths, it just disappeared. And what replaced it was this incredible freedom, the freedom of only having to remember one version of events, the true one. Now, these stories aren't about me being special. They're about what I learned about how integrity and power actually work. Let me break down what nobody taught us in school, what they don't tell you in business books, what you have to learn the hard way if someone doesn't share it with you. Here's the first truth, and it's going to sound backwards. The less you compromise, the more power you actually have. I call this the integrity paradox. Everyone thinks you need to compromise to gain power, but here's what really happens. People with integrity are rare. Let that sink in. In any organization, in any industry, in any community, people you can completely trust are rare. And rarity creates, when you're one of the few people who can be counted on absolutely, who says what they mean and means what they say, who won't sell out when the pressure's on, you become invaluable. Think about it from a follower's perspective. Who would you follow into danger? The person you mostly trust or the person you completely trust? Would you risk your career on someone's word if you knew they sometimes bent the truth? Would you invest your money with someone who occasionally cuts corners? Now think about it from an opponent's perspective. The person with integrity is actually harder to defeat. Why? Because you can't buy them. You can't blackmail them. You can't trap them in their own contradictions. They're predictable in the best way you know they'll do what they say they'll do. And here's the perspective that matters most. Think about your future self. What foundation do you want to be standing on? Power without integrity is just temporary control. Real influence, the kind that lasts, the kind that actually changes things, that requires trust. And trust is the one thing you can't fake for long. It's like a bank account. Every compromise you make is a withdrawal. Every principled choice is a deposit. And here's the thing about that account. It compounds. When you have a history of integrity, people give you the benefit of the doubt. When you have a history of compromise, they question everything you do. But here's what makes this so hard. and why so many people give up on integrity. The scoreboard lies to you at first. The second truth is this: shortcuts win sprints, but integrity wins marathons. In the short term, the person who cheats looks like they're ahead. They get the promotion faster. They close the deal quicker. They seem to be winning while you're still playing by the rules. And it's so discouraging. I get it. I've been there. Watching someone who lied their way into the job you deserved. But trust takes time to build, and it compounds like interest. Every interaction where you keep your word, every commitment you follow through on, every time you tell the hard truth, it's building equity. And that equity grows exponentially over time. Here's what I saw happen again and again. The person who takes shortcuts wins today's game but loses tomorrow's opportunity. Because people remember, not always consciously, but when something really important comes up, when they need someone they can absolutely count on, who do they call? They call the person with the track record. I studied political careers for years. You know what the data shows? The average tenure of a corrupt leader is about 7 years. They rise fast and fall hard. The average tenure of a principled leader is over 20 years. They build slowly but sustainably. And there's a network effect here that's powerful. When you're known for integrity, other people with integrity want to work with you. You start attracting the best people, and those people bring their networks. Before you know it, you're not just one person with integrity, you're the center of a network of trusted people, and that network becomes unstoppable. When crisis hits, and crisis always hits eventually, who survives the scrutiny? Not the person with skeletons in their closet, not the person whose success was built on deception. The person with integrity might have failures, might have made mistakes, but they don't have secret bombs waiting to explode. Time reveals everything. You're not building for the headline. You're building for the audit. And when your life gets audited by the press, by your community, by history, or just by your own conscience at 3 a.m, what will they find? Now, you might be thinking, but John, what about all those people who succeed through corruption? What about all the powerful people who got there by compromising everything? I see them every day. Let me address that directly. The third truth is what I call the success mirage. What looks like success from the outside often feels like prison from the inside. I knew a man, I won't tell you his name, but he was powerful. Very powerful. He had the office, the title, the wealth, the influence. From the outside, he'd made it. He'd won at life. But I'll never forget a conversation I had with him late one night after everyone else had gone home. He told me he couldn't sleep anymore. Not well, anyway. He was constantly anxious about being found out. He'd lied and manipulated his way to the top, and now he was terrified someone would discover it. He couldn't trust anyone because he'd betrayed so many people on his way up. His relationships were hollow. His success felt empty. He had everything and nothing. Here's what I learned. You cannot enjoy what you had to become someone else to get. Think about that. If you betray yourself to achieve success, who's there to enjoy it? The person who wins isn't you. It's this stranger you created, this compromised version of yourself. And that stranger is someone you probably don't even like. Imposter syndrome is real when you're actually an imposter. If your success is built on deception, on taking credit for others' work, on cutting corners and covering tracks, then yeah, you're going to feel like a fraud. Because you are. And that feeling doesn't go away when you get more successful. It gets worse. The higher you climb, the harder you have to work to maintain the illusion. The cost that nobody mentions is this: constant anxiety, relationship emptiness, spiritual bankruptcy. You might have money, but you can't relax. You might have power, but you don't have peace. You might have admiration, but you don't have real connection. Because real connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires honesty. Ask not whether you want their results. Ask whether you want their inner life. Would you trade places with them completely? Would you trade your peace of mind for their position? Would you trade your clear conscience for their corner office? Because it's a package deal. You don't get to cherry pick the good parts and leave the rest. So if integrity creates real power, why doesn't everyone choose it? Because there's a cost that nobody talks about honestly. The fourth truth: integrity isn't free, but compromise costs more. Let me give you the honest accounting. In the short term, you will lose some opportunities. You will. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Some doors will close because you won't do what's required to walk through them. You will be seen as difficult, stubborn, or naive by people who've made different choices. You will watch less principled people advance faster initially. You will doubt yourself repeatedly. You'll wonder if you're a fool. I remember nights when I questioned everything. When I watched someone who'd lied and schemed to get the position I'd worked for honestly. When I saw the reward go to the person who'd cut the corner while I'd taken the long way. Those nights are hard. They're lonely, and I won't pretend they're not. But here's the alternative. Here's what compromise costs: constant fear of exposure. Every success comes with this nagging anxiety that someone will find out how you really got there. You can't fully celebrate because you're always looking over your shoulder. Relationships based on transaction, not trust. The people in your life are there because of what you can do for them, not because of who you are. And you can feel that difference, even if you don't want to admit it. Success you can't share with people who knew you before. You start avoiding old friends because they remember who you used to be, and you're not that person anymore. You can't bring your success home because home remembers your values. A legacy you can't be proud of. When you think about what you'll leave behind, when you imagine what people will say about you when you're gone, if you're honest with yourself, you know it won't be what you want to hear. So here's the math. Would you rather pay up front with occasional setbacks or pay forever with your peace? Would you rather have delayed success that you can fully enjoy or quick success that feels hollow? Would you rather build something real that takes time or build something fake that could crumble any moment? Now here's where it gets really practical. This isn't all or nothing. This is where most people get confused about integrity. They think it means being rigid, inflexible, impossible to work with. That's not it at all. The fifth truth: you must know your absolute line before the pressure arrives, but not everything is absolute. There's the negotiable and the non-negotiable, and you need to know the difference before you're in the moment. Because in the heat of the moment, under pressure, with everything on the line, that's not when you want to be figuring out your values. That's when you need to know them so deeply that the choice is automatic. Here's my framework. The negotiable: tactics, timing, methods, compromises on preferences, how you achieve something, when you do it, what approach you take. These can be flexible. Politics is the art of compromise on everything except principle. I compromised 1,000 times on how to get things done. I worked with people I disagreed with. I adjusted my timeline. I changed my methods. That's not betraying integrity. That's being effective. The non-negotiable: core values, truth-telling, protecting the vulnerable. Your word. These are the lines you draw in concrete. When you make a promise, you keep it. Period. When you know the truth, you tell it, even when it costs you. When someone vulnerable needs protection, you provide it, even when it's inconvenient. These aren't negotiable. Ever. How do you find your line? Ask yourself, what would I want my children to emulate? If you have kids, or imagine having them someday, what behavior would you want them to copy from you? That's a pretty good guide for where your line should be. Ask yourself, what could I never undo or apologize for? Some mistakes you can fix, some you can't. Some things once done change who you are permanently. Those are on the other side of your line. Ask yourself, what would make me unrecognizable to my younger self? Think about who you were before the world taught you to compromise. What would that version of you be ashamed of? That's your line. Here's a practical example. You can compromise on when to fight, but not on whether to lie. If you're in a meeting and someone's being treated unfairly, you don't have to blow up the meeting right that second. But you can't choose to stay silent and pretend you didn't notice. You can be strategic without being dishonest. Leadership wisdom comes down to this: flexibility on everything except character. Be adaptable, be strategic, be willing to compromise on 1,000 things, but not on who you are. But here's what most people miss, and this changed everything for me when I finally understood it. Integrity isn't just about defense. It's not just about what you won't do. It's actually your greatest weapon. The sixth truth: in a world of liars, truth tellers dominate. Integrity is a competitive advantage, and I mean that in the most practical, strategic sense. When everyone else is making promises they can't keep, you can make commitments others can't. Your word actually means something, so when you commit to something, people believe you. That gives you power in negotiations that liars don't have. When everyone else is covering their tracks and managing their image, you can build coalitions others can't hold together, because people trust you to be fair, to keep your word, to not betray them the moment it's convenient. You can build teams that actually work together instead of just competing to not be the one who gets blamed. When the storm hits, and the storm always hits, you can weather it in ways others can't survive, because you don't have secret weaknesses. You don't have hidden compromises waiting to be exposed. When someone tries to dig up dirt on you, they find exactly what they already knew. That's incredibly powerful. You attract the best people, and others can't. Talented people with options want to work for someone they respect. They want to hitch their wagon to someone whose success won't embarrass them later. When you have integrity, you get first pick of the best people. Your competition gets whoever's left. Study after study shows this in business. Ethical companies outperform over time. Not every quarter, not every year, but over time, the companies that play it straight beat the ones that cut corners. Why? Because they're not dealing with lawsuits, scandals, employee turnover, and customer distrust. They're just building. Think about your personal network. Who do you call at 3 in the morning when you're in real trouble? Now reverse it. Who calls you? The people in your 3 a.m. network. The people who trust you absolutely. That's your real wealth. That's your real power. Here's the ultimate edge. While everyone else is covering their tracks, managing their lies, dealing with the fallout of their compromises, you're making progress. While they're using energy to maintain their false image, you're using that energy to actually get things done. That's an enormous competitive advantage. Now, here's the lesson that saved me from self-righteousness, from becoming insufferable, from turning integrity into a weapon I used to judge everyone else. And you need to hear this. The seventh truth: integrity is direction, not perfection. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to compromise poorly sometimes. You are going to fall short. You will look back on decisions and wish you'd chosen differently. That's not failure. That's being human. The difference between someone with integrity and someone without isn't that one never fails. It's what they do afterward. Do you learn and adjust, or do you rationalize and repeat? When you mess up, do you admit it and fix it, or do you cover it up and hope nobody notices? I've made plenty of mistakes. Decisions I'm not proud of. Moments where I chose the easier path instead of the right one. The question isn't whether you'll have those moments. The question is what you do with them. Beating yourself up when you fall short, that's just ego. That's pride disguised as conscience. Real integrity shows up in how you recover. Do you learn where your weak spots are? Do you strengthen your decision-making? Do you make amends where you can? And here's what real integrity looks like toward others. The person with true integrity shows mercy because they know their own failures. You don't become self-righteous and judgmental. You don't use your integrity as a club to beat other people with. You recognize that everyone's fighting this battle, Everyone's at a different stage. Everyone's learning. Have a growth mindset about this. Each setback, each compromise you regret, each moment where you didn't live up to your own standards, it teaches you where your line really is. It shows you where you're vulnerable. It gives you empathy for others who struggle with the same things. The ultimate truth. Integrity is built through recovery, not through perfection. The strongest steel is forged through fire and hammering. Your character gets stronger not by never being tested, but by how you respond when you are tested and fall short. So those are the principles. But principles without practice are just philosophy. And I didn't bring you here for philosophy. I brought you here for transformation. Let me give you the specific tools that will build your integrity into unshakable power. Ask not just what to believe, but what to do. These practices, done consistently, will change everything. The first practice, the daily integrity audit. Every single evening, before you go to sleep, take out a journal and answer 3 questions. Just 3. Where did I compromise today? No judgment, just awareness. Don't beat yourself up. Just see it clearly. Second question, where did I hold firm? Acknowledge the wins. This is important because we focus so much on failures that we forget to recognize the moments when we made the hard choice. Did you tell the truth when lying would have been easier? Did you keep a promise even though it was inconvenient? Did you stand up for someone? Notice that too. Celebrate it. Third question, what will I do differently tomorrow? Be specific, not I'll be better. But tomorrow when I'm in that meeting and someone asks my opinion, I'll share it honestly instead of saying what I think they want to hear. Concrete action. Specific situation. Why does this work? Because awareness prevents gradual drift. You can't slide into compromise if you're checking yourself every day. It's like weighing yourself daily when you're trying to lose weight. You catch the problem while it's still small. How to start? 5 minutes before bed, just 3 sentences. That's all it takes. Don't overcomplicate it. Just right. Compromised by staying silent in meeting. Held firm by returning extra change cashier gave me. Tomorrow will speak up when I disagree, even if boss is talking. The pattern you'll notice over weeks, you'll see themes, you'll realize you compromise most under certain conditions, maybe when you're tired, maybe when a specific person is involved, maybe in certain types of situations. Once you see the pattern, you can prepare for it. The second practice, the public commitment. State your principles out loud to someone who matters. This is powerful because public commitment creates both accountability and clarity. Here's what you do. Choose 3 non-negotiables. Just 3. The things you absolutely won't compromise on no matter what. Maybe it's, I will never lie to protect myself. I will never take credit for someone else's work. I will never stay silent when I witness injustice. Whatever they are, choose 3. Then tell someone, not just anyone, someone who matters to you, a friend, a mentor, a partner, a colleague you respect. Sit them down and say, these are my lines. I'm telling you because I want you to hold me accountable. If you ever see me cross these lines, call me out. I give you permission to challenge me lovingly but firmly. Why does this work? Because now it's not just about you. You've created external accountability. And knowing someone else is watching, someone whose opinion you care about, changes your behavior. It makes you more conscious of your choices. Advanced version. Write them down, date it, put it somewhere you'll see it regularly, review it quarterly and ask, am I still holding these lines? Do I need to adjust them based on what I've learned? The third practice, small integrity wins. Choose one area where you're going to practice perfect integrity for 30 days. Just one area. This is about building the integrity muscle in a low-stakes environment before you need it in a high-stakes situation. Examples: never exaggerate in any conversation for 30 days. When you tell a story, tell it accurately. When you describe your achievements, be precise. No embellishments, no making yourself look better than you are. It's harder than you think. Or never blame others for your mistakes for 30 days. When something goes wrong, that's your fault. Own it immediately. No careful wording to shift responsibility. No, yeah, but they also just, that was my mistake. Here's how I'll fix it. Or never pretend to knowledge you don't have for 30 days. When someone asks you something and you don't know, say, I don't know, instead of faking it. When you're in a meeting and you don't understand, ask instead of nodding along. Or never stay silent when you witness wrong for 30 days. When you see someone being treated unfairly, speak up. When you hear gossip about someone, defend them. When something isn't right, say something. Why does this work? Because you're training yourself in an area where the stakes are relatively low. You're building the habit, the muscle memory, so that when the high-stakes situation comes, the response is automatic. The progression: master one area, then expand to another. After 30 days of perfect honesty about your knowledge, add another area. Build gradually. This isn't about perfection in everything at once. It's about steady improvement. Key insight: small wins compound into character. Each time you make the hard choice in a small moment, you're making it slightly easier to make the hard choice in a big moment. The fourth practice: the decision-making framework. This is what you do before any significant choice. Before you make any decision that matters, ask yourself 3 questions. Not after, before. Build in the integrity check before you commit. Question 1: would I be proud explaining this decision to someone I admire? Think about someone whose respect really matters to you. Your father, your mentor, that teacher who believed in you, your hero. Would you be proud to sit down with them and walk them through your reasoning? Or would you be making excuses and dancing around parts of it? Question 2: would I want this decision made public tomorrow? Imagine it's on the front page of the newspaper. Everyone you know reads about it. Your name is attached. How do you feel? If the answer is panic or shame, that's your conscience telling you something. Question 3: does this align with who I want to become? Not who you are right now, who you're trying to become. Your best self, your highest potential. Does this decision move you toward that person or away from them? If any answer is no, stop. Don't make that decision. Reconsider. Find another way. There's always another way. It might be harder. It might take longer. But there's always a path that doesn't require you to betray yourself. Practice this. Use this framework for 1 week on every decision, not just the big ones. Every decision. What to say in an email, whether to speak up in a meeting, how to respond to a question. Train the instinct. Make it automatic. The result? Your integrity compass becomes second nature. Eventually, you won't need to consciously ask the questions. You'll just know. But you get there by practicing deliberately first. The 5th practice: the amends practice. This is what separates integrity from pride. When you compromise or fail, and you will make it right immediately. Not eventually. Not when it's convenient. Immediately. What this looks like: you realize you took credit for someone's idea in a meeting. As soon as you realize it, you correct it. Send an email. Make a call. In the next meeting, say, I need to correct something. That idea I mentioned was actually Sarah's, and I should have said that from the start. Sarah, thank you for that insight. You told a story that wasn't quite accurate. made yourself look better than the truth. Go back to that person. Say, hey, I need to be honest. When I told you that story, I embellished. Here's what actually happened. Why does this matter? Because this is what separates people with genuine integrity from people who just want to look like they have integrity. Anyone can avoid compromise when it's easy. The person with real character is the one who fixes it when they mess up. The power in this: people respect recovery more than perfection. When you quickly and honestly admit mistakes and make amends, people trust you more, not less, because they know that if you ever wrong them, you will make it right. That's incredibly rare and valuable. These 5 practices aren't complicated. You could start all of them today, but done consistently, they'll transform you from someone who hopes to have integrity into someone who knows they do. They'll make integrity automatic instead of something you have to constantly think about. They'll build a foundation that everything else in your life will stand on. Now let me bring this all home. My friend, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about stories from my life, about principles that took me years to learn, about practices you can start using immediately. But it all comes down to one choice you make every single day. Who do you want to be when nobody's watching? Because that's who you actually are. The world will always offer you shortcuts. Always. Every single day, you'll face the temptation to compromise just a little, to cut just one corner, to tell just one small lie, to take just one unearned advantage. And some people will take those shortcuts and seem to prosper. They'll get the promotion, close the deal, win the election. And you'll wonder if you're a fool for playing by the rules. But I've lived long enough to see how those stories end. I've seen the powerful brought low by their compromises. I've watched people with everything lose it all because their foundation was rotten. I've seen scandals destroy decades of work because someone took shortcuts they thought no one would find out about. And I've also seen the opposite. I've seen the principled rise to influence they never sought because people were desperate for someone they could trust. I've seen people with integrity become magnets for opportunity because everyone knew they were solid. I've seen quiet character outlast loud ambition every single time. You don't trade integrity for power because, and hear me clearly, you can't. That's not how it works. What you trade it for is the appearance of power, the illusion of success, the temporary control that evaporates the moment you need it most. Real power, the kind that changes things, the kind that builds legacies, the kind that lets you sleep at night that only comes one way, through becoming someone that people can trust completely. Ask not whether integrity will make your climb harder. The question isn't whether the path is harder. The question is, do you want to reach the top and hate who you had to become to get there? Do you want success that requires you to avoid people who knew you before? Do you want power that comes with constant fear of exposure? Ask not whether you can afford to keep your principles. Ask whether you can afford to lose them, because once you start compromising, it's hard to stop. Each compromise makes the next one easier. You train yourself out of having a conscience, and one day you wake up and you don't recognize yourself. Ask not what shortcuts will buy you, ask what they'll cost. Because everything has a cost. The question is whether you pay it up front or whether it accumulates with interest and bankrupts you later. Here's what I want you to remember every single day. Your integrity is not separate from your power, it is your power. They're not two different things in tension with each other. Your character is your competitive advantage. Your trustworthiness is your currency. Your consistency is your strength. The person you are in private is the foundation for everything you can be in public. Every small choice to do right when no one's watching is building the character that everyone will depend on when they are watching. Every time you keep your word when it's inconvenient, you're making deposits in an account that will pay dividends for decades. You are not sacrificing success by choosing integrity. You're ensuring that when success comes, and it will come, you'll still be yourself to enjoy it. You'll be able to celebrate without fear. You'll be able to share it with people you love without shame. You'll be able to look at your reflection and feel proud of not just what you've achieved, but how you achieved it. If you build on integrity, you might build slower. I won't lie to you about that. You might not be the first to reach certain milestones. You might watch others sprint past you using methods you won't use, but you'll build something that lasts, something that matters, something that echoes in the lives you touch long after you're gone. And my friend, that's not just power. That's not just success. That's legacy. That's the difference between being remembered and being respected, between having authority and having influence, between commanding compliance and inspiring commitment. The people who change the world, who really change it, aren't the ones who grab power by any means necessary. They're the ones who built power on such a solid foundation that nothing could shake it. They're the ones whose word meant something, whose character was unquestionable, whose integrity made them unshakable. That can be you. That is you, if you choose it. And you choose it not once, but every day, in every small decision, in every moment when nobody's watching, in every temptation to take the shortcut. Now, if this message resonated with you, I need you to do something. First, subscribe to this channel. I'm going to keep having these honest conversations about leadership, character, and building a life that matters. Not perfect, polished speeches, but real talk about what it takes to be someone of substance in a world that often rewards style over substance. I want you on this journey with me. Second, hit that like button if something I said today shifted your perspective, even a little. Maybe you came here thinking integrity was a handicap, and now you're seeing it as a strategy. Maybe you were about to make a compromise, and now you're reconsidering. Maybe you just needed someone to validate that voice inside you that keeps saying there's a better way. Your engagement helps this message reach someone who desperately needs to hear it right now. Someone who's standing at that crossroads, about to make a choice that will define the rest of their life. Your like could be what puts this video in front of them. And third, this is the most important one. Leave a comment telling me about one decision you're facing where integrity and ambition are in tension. Or share a time when you chose integrity and what happened. What was the cost? What was the reward? Are you glad you made that choice? Or do you regret it? This community is built on people courageous enough to choose character over convenience. People who are willing to be honest about their struggles, their fears, their doubts. Your story matters. Your struggle matters. Someone reading your comment might be facing the exact same situation, and your experience could be exactly what they need to make the right choice. And sometimes, knowing you're not alone in the fight is what keeps you standing. When everyone around you seems to be taking shortcuts and getting ahead, it helps to know there's a community of people committed to doing it right. Let's build that community together. Let's support each other in choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Remember, you were not born to trade your soul for success. You were not put on this earth to become powerful by becoming hollow. You were meant to show the world that success built on character is not just possible, it's the only kind worth having. Now go out there and prove it. Not to me, not to anyone else watching, but to yourself. Prove to yourself that you can build something real, something lasting, something you're proud of, not just because of what it is, but because of how you built it. And when you're standing at that crossroads someday, when the pressure's on and the temptation is strong and everyone's telling you to just compromise this once, remember this conversation. Remember that somewhere there's a guy named John who stood at that same crossroads, who made the hard choice, who paid the price, and reaped the reward. Remember that integrity isn't the obstacle, it's the path. Ask not what the world will give you for your compromise. Ask what you'll have left of yourself when the world is done taking. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep building on that foundation. Keep being someone your younger self would be proud of. Keep refusing to trade who you are for what you might get. God bless you, and God bless the courage it takes to do right when wrong is easier. That courage, my friend, is what changes the world.